function defined on -4, 3, whose graph consisting of 3 line segments with a semicircle centered at the origin is given above. Let g be the function given by g of x equals x over 1, f of t at d of t. Find the values of g of 2 and g of -2.
Okay, questions that has to do with the integral in the picture is easy freebie like giveaway. So let's see what I mean by that. If g of x is the integral, isn't the integral basically area under the curve? Yes? So I'm going to write on here g of x is the area. Write that out. Then that means g prime of x. So let's look at the equation given. If I take the prime of g and I take the prime of the integral, doesn't that cancel the integral and the prime out? Derivative and the integral cancels each other out, correct? So I have remaining f of x. And if you notice the graph that I gave you is the f, meaning f of x, if you were to think of algebra, f of x is basically the y value. So I'm going to write y. And then g prime of x is f prime of x. Since I gave you the f of x, the prime is the slope. Derivative is the slope. So I'm going to write on here, that's representing the slope. Part A, you don't even need all that part. All you have to do is plug in the value of the x inside into it. So when I do, I get g of 2 is equal to integral from 1 to 2 of f of t dt. So all I do is plug things in. Let's see what that means from there. It says, from 1 to 2, what shape am I making? Here's my 1, here's my 2. Do y'all see that tiny little triangle?
Yes.
So hopefully y'all remember half times base times height, correct? So on this one, if that's representing positive 1, that's representing negative 1. So can we kind of deduce that's probably half?
Yes.
It's half.
It's
So on this one we have, because it's on the bottom, because y'all remember for the area, below the x-axis is negative, above the x-axis is positive. So start with the negative. Half times base times height. The base is 1. And the height is half. Technically, we're doing negative half times negative half. Positive half. That's negative 1/4. That's going to give you 1 point right there. But do plug it in, okay, into the formula and then to the equation and get to that value. For g of -2, again, plug it in. Something awkward happens here. And if you already know what the awkwardness is, great. If you don't know, well, let's talk about it. So the integral has to be written numerically for below to be negative and above to be positive. If I go from positive 1 to -2, is that numerically correct? You're not to be half times a base times a 3. And that's going to give us 3/2, but it's above, and it's numerically incorrect, so I need -3/2. Can I combine these two values? No. So that alone, all that, plug it into the formula and into the circle and the triangle, it's going to give you 1 point. Okay, if you're good with that, give me a thumbs up. Okay, moving on to the next one, part B. Frank, let's read part B.
Read g prime -3, g double prime of -3. Find the value or state that it does not exist.
Okay, so then let's kind of recall. G prime is the y value. G double prime is the slope of that value, correct? So let's write on here what they want on the AP test, which is kind of picky. Not just G prime of -3. They also want you to write that as f of -3, understanding that that part is a y value. That's why organizing this at the beginning is very important. So then, what is a y value at -3? Anybody on the graph?
2.
2. Do we agree on that? Was that easy to find? So easy to find. So that alone right here, 1 point. And again, they do want the g prime of 3 and f of 3, saying I understand they are related. The next one, g prime of -3, which is f prime of -3. F prime of -3 means at -3, what is my slope? Looking at my picture here, here's my -3. My slope is positive or negative here. From left to right, we're going up. And if you were to do rise over run, applying your Algebra 1 skills, it should be what? Do you rise over run? Up how many? Like, what is the slope from here to here?
1, 1.
Because we really went 2/2, right? So 1, 1, very good. And that alone, again, is going to be 1 point. But do have G double prime and F single prime. Okay? Always write more than you need. Our next one.
You have to state if it does or does not exist, though. You have to say that it exists, right? You have to actually write that out, right?
State the value, I stated the value. Or it doesn't exist. It does exist. Okay?
So you could literally just say it exists.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get to the next page where something doesn't exist, so I'm going to show you how to write that part. Okay? All right. Now let's go on to part C. James, let's read part C, please.
Find the x-coordinate of each point at which the graph of G has a horizontal tangent line. Raising these points, determine whether G has a relative minimum, relative maximum, or neither a minimum nor a maximum at the point. Justify your answer.
Okay, let's underline G as a horizontal tangent. Now, when G has a horizontal tangent, it's basically the mountain, correct? At the tip of the mountain, what's my slope? If I go from positive to negative, what number is guaranteed? 0. So that means we have G prime of x, which is f of x, we're still stating that, is equal to 0. So let's look and see on the graph where we have f of x is equal to 0. Would y'all agree my f of x is 0 right here? Would y'all also agree I have another one right here? Okay, let's go ahead and state that. And since they want you to justify, it means write as much as possible. Somebody, again, is not listening. All right, so this one is going to be pretty heavy on using flashcard 5B. I'm going to go back to it back and forth. So let's put on here the graph. Can I say it has a horizontal asymptote, horizontal tangent? Can I use the word it, that, they? None of that, okay? So the graph of G has a horizontal, can y'all tell that's horizontal? Tangent line. When, now I still have to state that again. G prime of x, which is f of x, is equal to 0. So we know those points are at, we found the first one on the left at where? X equals what value? Look at your graph.
-1.
-1. And we had another one at 0. X equals what? 1. All right, so now let's talk about what's happening. They're asking us, is it a relative minimum or a maximum? So here I go. Eyes on the board. So if I go from positive to negative, is that a maximum? Do we all see that? So that means if the vice versa would be if I go from negative to positive, it is a minimum, correct? So looking at this guy over here at -1, we're going from positive to negative. So that means this right here is a maximum or a minimum. We go up and we go down. It is a maximum. And then let's go on further though. At this point, I have a negative and a negative. Are we changing sign at all there? So that it's going to be neither, okay? So the way I'm going to write, it's going to be quite wordy. There is a relative maximum at x equals -1 because the reasoning is part of it. G prime of x, which is f of x, changes. I can't say just changes sign because for the maximum to happen, I have to go in which order? What comes first? Positive to negative. Because if you say changing sign, the AP graders could go, all right, negative to positive, incorrect, that piece will be invalid. And then let's talk about the other piece. There is neither, and Max, this is what I was talking about, relative maximum or relative minimum at x equals 1 because, and we still have to mention our notation, G prime of x, which is f of x, does not, now on this one, can I say it's not changing sign? Yeah, does not change sign? You can say that. Change sign. Because I've included relative maximum and minimum, so I can say changing sign in general. Now, could you have been specific on that one? Yes, you can. You're not going to get points taken off. For this part, there's 3 points embedded on this one. Knowing the notation, the G prime of x and f of x has to equal 0 because of horizontal tangent definition, and the two values, all that is gonna give you, well, actually, this is gonna give you 1 point. This is gonna give you another point. In our explanation with where the maximum is and neither, another point. You writing with me? All right, Maddie, let's read part D.
For -4 is less than x less than 3, find all values of x for which the graph of g of s at that point of inflection. Explain your reasoning.
Okay, let's go ahead and underline graph G has a point of inflection. So let's see if y'all remember. So point of inflection has to do with the prime or double prime? Double, very good. So let's write on here G double prime, which is F prime, change of sign. So let's look at the graph first. Oh, here's my graph. So I'm looking for, because I gave you the F, I have to look for F prime, meaning the slope. So would you agree my slope here is positive?
Yes,
Would you agree my slope here is negative?
yes.
So it's changing sign, so our point of inflection is -2. Do we all see that? Okay? The next one. It is going down here, it's going down here, it is not point of inflection, but it is going down here and it's going up. There's a point of inflection at 0. So we have it at -2, at 0. Do I have another spot? It is going up, it's going down. We have another one at 1. So in that order, let's write out the graph. Everybody's writing with me. Of G has, I'm going to write POI. It's a common variable, what's the word? Acronym. At x equals -2, x equals 0, and x equals 1 because, and we're going to use that little notation, G of x, which is f prime of x, is changing what? Change of sign. Positive to negative or negative to positive. So let's see where the points are going to come from. Having the 3 values, it'll be all or none. You can't just pick 1 or 2. All 3 of them, it is 1 point. And explain the reasoning with the correct notation of double prime and single prime, and the reasoning is going to give you another point. So let's go ahead and count if I have enough. So we have 2, that's 5, 7, and 9. So on here, I want you to write, what was your raw? What was your potential? Now let's talk about raw real quick. Eyes on the board. Let's say you didn't have time to finish it, but as I worked on it, you're like, well, I knew that. You may consider that on the raw points. We good on that? Okay?